we're gonna do something a little bit different today. You know, it's spring now and I have got to get some posters back up on this wall, but you know, not winter. I want it to be springish. I want it to have, you know, nice vivid colors. Thankfully, here on the East Coast, most of the pollen has subsided, so that's great. And what we're gonna do differently is instead of taking a project from start to finish, just from scratch, I'm gonna show you the 3 posters that I made. We're gonna pick them apart together and I'm gonna show you the individual elements and how I placed these together. And then I'm gonna kind of demonstrate how you could take this template that I've posted on my account, by the way, and change the colors, change the text to suit your needs. You could sell them on Etsy, you could hang them in your own house, give them as a gift, just really make them your own. So I'm in Kittl now and I have 6 artboards right here. These first 3 are the 3 posters that I made, and then these 3 down here are just gonna be kind of us recreating them together so I can show you how they were built. So this is actually not very complicated and I'll break it down for you. So in this first poster, we have a couple of different things. First of all, we have 2 different fonts that are used. The first is Brickledge Grotesque, as you can see by this text box, as well as the Herr von Muellerhof script font, which you can find under the script category. These gradient blocks right here, I can Command G to ungroup this, are just an element. If you go to the element panel and you go to basic shapes, I might show all and go through this. There's this nice circle gradient element, but there's also this square one as well. So I clicked this one, and I'll just get this out of the way so you can see how this works. And I click in here, and I just was, okay, it's spring, and I want to use spring colors, so I'm thinking, you know, yellow, pink, red. Didn't venture into the blue. I didn't feel like it fit into the palette as much as I wanted it to. I did try it, but so I stuck with yellow, pink, and red. So I chose my first color right here, and I went on the slider to a nice yellow, maybe a little something more towards orange like that. I can maybe pull this over so that it saturates a little bit more of the edges there. And then over here, you can see that the color ends in like a nice pinkish red. So I may come down here and get that nice pinkish red color. And I'm gonna make sure that the opacity is at 100, so it'll end with that red color in the middle. And now you can also see that there's a third color in here, so it's a pink. So if I just click anywhere on the gradient slider, it'll add a color. Like I can add infinite colors, I can add as many as I want, but I'm gonna click in the middle here, and then I'm just gonna find a nice pinkish color to work with. And already that is an awesome gradient. It's funny, I might even like that a little bit more than the one that I posted, but nonetheless, it is an awesome gradient, and I can adjust this. Maybe I want a little bit more yellow and a little less pink, so I can bring this color like this, and that's actually looking a little bit closer to this one right here. So that is these block elements here, and then the border just comes from this border weight option right here. So I could do this, and I could say that I want the border weight to be 2. You've got to experiment to see the thickness. I tried my best to make sure that the thickness of all of the strokes or border weights, I call them strokes because in any other design software, it's called a stroke. It is the line that outlines whatever object you're in. You can choose the stroke weight as well. I tried to make sure that all of the strokes or outline widths were the same across the entire project because I want it to be consecutive and I want it to be consistent throughout the project. So that is these first 2 elements right here. These are just 2 different gradients. Essentially, it's the same gradient. You can look at this one, and then if I click this one right here, it's just flopped. It's the same gradient, and all I did was I took the slider and I brought it on the other side. And so that's something that's really, really cool that you can experiment with and really, really make your own. And the same concept goes for the numbers as well. In fact, any numbers in text you can apply a radial gradient to. It's interesting, this is kind of the hack, because let's say I click T and I add new text, and then I go to a gradient color. If I make this a gradient, it's linear. It's one direction from top to bottom, or I can rotate this and I can make it side to side. but they're not radial gradients yet. We are working on a radial gradient option, but as of right now, if you start text and make it a gradient from scratch, it's gonna be just one way and not expand out from the center like you may want. So the hack that I discovered while making this template was, if you have created a radial gradient from either one of these two basic shapes, which by the way, this shape right here is this one up here, and it's just stretched like that. And I'll get to that. But if you select your text after you've made a radial gradient from either of those two shapes, you can just apply that gradient to the text and it'll be fine. You can copy it as many times as you want. You can do anything that you need to do with that. Unfortunately, there are some issues when you try to apply that to other shapes that are not meant to have radial gradients. It'll work, but as soon as you try to duplicate it or Command Z, basically the gradient will like delete itself and it'll show that it has a gradient, but it doesn't. It's just a bug right now and we're working on a fix for it. But as far as text and basic shapes, like this rectangle and these ovals, which honestly for right now are the only ones that I need to use this kind of effect with, it's fine. Another workaround, if you want to do some different shapes with a radial gradient, is you can use a mask. So like for example, if I wanted to put a radial gradient in this guy right here, I could take this radial gradient and put it inside the mask and just size it where I wanted, just like that. And it's not the same as like it actually coming from the anchor points. It is a mask, so it's going to spill over the edges. And so it's not gonna have that full red bleed that kind of latches to the anchor points around the project. But like I said, we are currently working on that option. So yeah, like I said, same deal up here. These are just, I can ungroup this. These are just 4 basic shapes right here. I just took this, stretched it, and rotated it 45 degrees. That's all it is. And then just duplicated it 4 times. And then this one right here is actually one that is on top of the oval gradient shape. I just found it easier to do it that way to make sure that all of the strokes were the same, like I was saying earlier. Okay, on to the second poster. There's not really much to say here. This is just 4 of these outlines and then 1 of the radial gradients stacked. And I did this to kind of like represent spring, like a flower shooting up, you know, like it's spring and the birds are chirping and a flower is popping. I didn't do that at all. I just thought it looked cool. I just took this and I rotated it and I put it in the center and then adjusted the stroke. That's all I did. There was no absolute intention behind it at all. On to the third poster. As you can probably notice, these 2 posters have the same gradient shapes and they are actually the exact same shapes. I just held my Option key, click, and drug those shapes over. Also, we've been getting some comments about Option drag doesn't work. We can't do that. Do you guys have a feature that we don't, or do you guys have a version of the program that we don't? No, we use the same version of Kittl that you do. You have to hold Option first before you click anything. So my finger is on the Option key, then I'm going to click and hold and then drag, and that will duplicate. You can do that with artboards. It's the same thing. So with this third poster, all I did was I copied these 2 gradients over here and I just rotated them, adjusted the size a little bit. And then these blocks, if I ungroup this so you can see, these blocks are just this basic shape rectangle that I have taken the outline from and then adjusted the border weight to fit. And then just, you kind of have to just place them like blocks around. And then again, this is just Bricolage Grotesque. This is Bricolage Grotesque. And then after I had all my elements, it's just like Tetris. It's just blocks and putting them to where things feel balanced. So let's go on to recreating maybe 1 or 2 of these, and then I'll show you how to change the colors in the text so you can make these your own. So let's start with this one. So like I said, what I did was I went into my basic shapes category. This is just more of a deep dive. If you understood the tutorial by me just breaking down the layers and you want to skip ahead to how to manipulate the template, go ahead. Here's the timestamp. This is just more of an in-depth tutorial of how I made these. So just for reference, I'm going to size these to here. So that's my gradient. I wanted a nice red to pink to yellow gradient. So I'm going to go in here, gradient color, and I'm going to choose my nice red, and then I'm going to select another color and get a nice pink color. Want to make sure that we can get something that prints. Definitely want to make sure that it'll print, and then also make sure that all of our gradient colors opacity is turned up. If you're wondering why, like, oh, why is it fading and there's no make sure that your opacity is turned up. That'll probably fix that for you. And then I'm going to click this square right here, maybe a little towards orange. Boom, like that. And then I'm gonna bring my kind of magenta purplish here. And then I need to adjust this purple color, maybe a little more towards pink, maybe a little bit more yellow in there. And I'm not gonna make this one for one because it's gonna be impossible and take a bunch of time. That's pretty close. So these three colors look pretty close. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click down here to my border weight and I'm gonna add a black border weight. I'm just gonna put the border weight to 2 for this demonstration. Copy and paste this. I used my guide right here. Like I said, copy and paste, hold, option, drag. Now, if you want it to lock in place so that it's not flailing about and just free, you can also hold shift and it'll lock it in place either linear or up and down. So I'm gonna have this lock in place, use my guides right there, and then I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm gonna hold shift and bring this down until I meet my borders right there. Awesome. Next thing I need to do, add some text, hit T. I'm gonna bring this onto my artboard. Like I said, we were using Bricolage Grotesque. I think I used the extra bold font weight, and I'm just gonna click this and hit 2, size that to about right there. It doesn't have to be exact. This is just to show you how I did it. And then I'm going to copy and paste that by holding option and dragging. Then I can select these two guys, and then I'm going to select the inverse of the color that is on the gradient. So this one is going from red to yellow, and I want the text to go from yellow to red. So it looks like that one right there. Select this, make that an O, and then I'm gonna select this guy, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna flip these colors around. So now it's the inverse gradient. Something like that looks good. And I can select these numbers, make sure that's lined up. I can go in here, change this to 4, and then select these guys. And like I said, make it the inverse gradient. So the gradient right here is going from yellow to red. I want the text to go from red to yellow on the inside. And we're almost done with this one. So I'm gonna hit T again, and I'm gonna use that Herr von Muellerhoff font. And I'm just gonna say, here come the flowers. And I'm going to stick this down in the bottom left. Next, I'm going to grab this basic shape, size this down quite a bit. We can zoom in here. And then I'm just going to stretch this out into an oval or an ellipses. And then I'm going to rotate this to a 45. I can select the object color here and make that transparent and add a border weight. I can make the border weight 2. And then I'm, again, option, then drag, holding shift to duplicate this, and I'm gonna make 4 of these and just try to get them the most tidy I can. You can also select all 4 of them and click the tidy button, and it'll space them out evenly. Next, I'm going to go to my basic shapes, and I'm going to select that gradient circle option like I was talking about before, and then add whichever gradient I feel like complements the poster. We're gonna do a similar thing here. We're gonna rotate this at a 45, and this is gonna take some experimentation, just lining this up. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna put the other ellipses with the stroke in front of it. So all we need to do is make sure that the gradient ellipses at least covers the area that the stroke would. So now that that's there, we can select this one and send it to the back. And now it's in front of that, and we can select these others as well and send them to the back. And now this gradient shape is in front of those, but this outline is in front of the gradient. So now I can select all 4 of these, size this down, and put it in the corner here. So this is what I was saying before. now that I've sized them down, the stroke doesn't quite match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each of these and make sure that it has the same border weight as my other objects on the canvas. So the other ones, it was 2. We're gonna see how that looks, and that looks about right. If it doesn't, make adjustments, just use your eye, make sure it feels right. On to the second poster. All I did for this one, I just select this, grouped it, option drag, and size this guy up and put him in the middle. And then just the reverse of how I did this before, I selected each one of these individually and I turned the border weight down. So this would be putting these back to 2 since I sized them up. May seem tedious, but this is taking about 10 seconds in reality. So I'm gonna select all of these and make them about 2. And that's almost a 1-for-1 copy of the original, which is great. Both of these are pretty close. Awesome. I think that is enough to get you started with understanding how these posters were made. So now let's go on to kind of manipulating these original 3 and making them different, maybe manipulating them to a different topic or a different season. So for the purposes of this example, I'm going to get rid of these 3 artboards. You can just click on the name of the artboard, click delete, and they will go away from here. And then let's just start with this one. So this one says spring. Maybe I don't want spring. Maybe you don't want spring. Maybe I want autumn. So I'm going to click in here and I'm going to put autumn. And this is all uppercase. And I think I like that font weight, but this needs to have nice borders on the text. So I'm just gonna take the letter spacing and I'm gonna turn the letter spacing down. 800, let's go to 850, maybe a little more, 880, and that looks good. And then we can change our text down here, like this is autumn, so instead of here come the flowers, we could say here comes the leaves. That looks awesome. These aren't really fall colors, so I could go in here and I could take this yellow and I can make it like more of a burnt orange. And then this one right here, I could make more of a nice off yellow. And then this guy right here, we're just gonna do some experimenting. Maybe I want it to be like a brown or a yellow. That looks pretty cool. So we could take this one right here and then select our autumn one and then just flip these around. Like I said before, these are like super Thanksgiving-y looking colors. I could change this one down here, select this gradient and pick whichever one of these looks better. Boom. So now this poster is acclimated to fall instead of spring. I could do the same thing over here. I'm gonna select this, boom. Just showing you how easy this is. Here come the leaves, select this guy, one of my gradients, select this guy, the other gradient, and then I'm gonna do the inverse for the text, and then make sure that this one up here is changed as well. Maybe these aren't your favorite colors. This is just a demonstration to show how you could change these to make them your own. So you can see how in about just 2 minutes, I've taken this template and I've made it my own. I've changed the season, I've changed the colors and the type, and I've really made it something different and unique to me, and I can now use it for whatever I want. I can hang it up, I can give it to a friend, I can post it on an Etsy shop or on Amazon or anything that you want to do with the template. So the posters are in and it's time to take them out of the box and put them in the frame. There they are. Well, thank you so much for joining me today in making these awesome new posters for the spring collection of this poster line, I guess, for my office here. These were made entirely in Kittl. No outside assets, no outside anything, and just ordered through Printful. You can download your PDF designs and then order them directly from Printful, and they always do a great job. I'm always surprised by how well they do when these posters show up. If you've watched until now and you're not subscribed, just go ahead and click that subscribe button. It's right there. It takes 2 seconds. Click that button. Also, give us a like while you're at it and drop a comment. Do you like these posters? Do you hate them? Do you hate them? Let me know. If you hate them, let me know. Well, that's all for today's video. We will see you in the next one.